Recently did a study in which I interviewed 31 persons who were blind about their near-death experiences, including a number who were blind from birth. 80% of these blind persons report being able to see things of this world during their near-death encounters. When people talk about near-death experiences and describe them in heavenly terms, they often talk about a realm of tremendous dazzling light, of supernal beauty, and a feeling of total unconditional acceptance and love. I think one effect of having interviewed so many people about their near-death experiences on me personally is that it's made me feel a lot more comfortable about death. I think death is, I wouldn't say it's something to look forward to, but I don't think we have to have anything to fear in the moment of death itself, however painful the process of dying may be.
Again, I think the near-death experience is a dying experience. It's not an after-death experience. These people are not going to heaven and hell and coming back and telling us what it's like. I do think that it's a powerful spiritual experience during the dying process. It's on the road, but it's not actually there. So it suggests that there is a spiritual realm that's leading somewhere, but exactly where is not what the near-death experience is going to tell us.
But are near-death or out-of-body experiences the only tangible evidence of a road to heaven? It may come as a surprise to many that from the late 17th century until today, there have been many highly respected scientists who have been working to prove that immortality is a natural physical phenomenon, and its study is in fact a branch of physics. J.J. Thomson, who discovered the electron, is among that group, as is Thomas Alva Edison, and even Sigmund Freud, in his dying moments, said that if he had to live his life over, he would study parapsychology. And one of the world's lesser known but most prolific scientists and inventors, a man by the name of George Meek, gave up a highly profitable career and sold most of his businesses in order to pursue his quest for the possibility of a life hereafter. At age 60, long recognized as a brilliant American scientist and inventor with scores of industrial patents, George Meek retired and began 25 years of intensive research into life after death. He traveled the world to locate and establish research projects with the top medical doctors, psychiatrists, physicists, biochemists, ministers, priests, and rabbis. In 1987, he published the conclusions of his quarter of a century of research.
For the first time in 8,000 years of recorded history, it can now be said with certainty that our mind, memory, personality, and soul will survive physical death.
But survive where? If it has now been proven, as George Meeks suggests, that we live on after physical death, does that necessarily prove the existence of heaven? Dr. Melvin Morse, a leading world authority on dying children, described himself as an arrogant, critical care physician with an emotional bias against anything spiritual. But that was before he began a series of scientifically based studies of dying children. He found that many others had already arrived at the conclusions he would soon come to.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You bet.
When I review the medical literature, I think it points clearly to scientific evidence that something survives human death. This evidence includes case reports, reviews of the existing scientific literature, as well as direct experimental evidence, all causing a growing body of evidence in the scientific community, making it respectable to speculate that something survives human death.
Among that growing group of scientists is Dr. Stephen Hawking, widely regarded as the most brilliant scientific mind of this, or perhaps any age. In what many regard as a complete turnabout, Dr. Hawking, in his book, The Theory of Everything, The Origin and Fate of the Universe, writes,
"It would be very difficult to explain why the universe should have begun in just this way, except as the act of a God who intended to create beings like us. The whole history of the universe can be said to be the work of God. However, if we do discover a complete theory, it should, in time, be understandable by everyone, not just a few scientists. If we find the answer to that, it would be the ultimate triumph of human reason, for then we would know the mind of God."
At long last, the discussion is out on the scientific table. And Hawking is not the only scientist who has opened his mind to the intriguing possibilities of a world that was created especially for a mortal life. Nobel Prize-winning biochemist Francis Crick states, "The origin of life appears to be almost a miracle. So many are the conditions that would have to be satisfied to get it going." The internationally renowned physicist Paul Davies conceded that it is in the fundamental constants of nature that we find the most surprising evidence for a grand design. Another Nobel Prize winner in the field of physiology and medicine, John C. Eccles, asserts that, in some mysterious way, God is the creator of all living forms, and particularly in human persons, each with conscious selfhood of an immortal soul. And astronomer Owen Gingrich flatly states that, "Just as I believe the book of Scripture illuminates the pathway to God, so I believe the book of nature, with its astonishing details, a blade of grass or the resonance levels of the carbon atom, also suggest a God of purpose, a God of design." With God as the author of that grand design, the discussion suddenly branches out into other scientific areas. For example, that branch of physics that holds to the theory of the Big Bang. Can the idea of some unknown cosmic accident billions of years ago be reconciled with the notion of a universe that is the product of an elegant design? Not according to Oxford mathematician Roger Penrose, who actually calculated the odds against the possible generation of life dating back to the inception of the so-called Big Bang. His arithmetic reveals the staggering odds of 1 out of a billion, 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 repeated more than a billion, billion times. In other words, a mathematical and statistical impossibility. So, given that reality, Is there anything that can bring the assurance of religion and the pragmatism of science together? Perhaps there is. In his new book, God at Light Speed, Dr. T. Lee Bauman suggests that the unifying concept may be light.
In my research, I have tried to look closely at the latest information on near-death experiences, at the latest thinking in quantum physics, at new interpretations of information from the Bible, as well as the mysterious, fascinating nature of light. Other researchers, notably Drs. Moody and Morse, have found light to be the keynote event, the element that always leads to a transformation in their lives. But the question is, why light? Why not darkness? Physiologically, isn't death a descent into darkness? Yet Dannion Brinkley and almost all others who have experienced near death see light. Why? The fact is, there is no rational medical explanation for this occurrence. Einstein, however, showed us in the flow of light the corollary of the eternal now. Today, more scientists are recognizing the significance of the electromagnetic radiation that pervades our daily lives, including light. Incredibly, physicists have performed experiments that even suggest light is conscious. That is to say, in these experiments, light appears to be capable of making decisions. If a relationship possibly exists between light and a supreme being, perhaps it manifests in ways that have already been revealed to those who over the centuries have been believers in God.
Scripture abounds with references that are especially meaningful in this new context. In Psalms 104 we read, O Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment. John chapter 8 verse 12 says, Again Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And in 1 John chapter 1 verse 5, a clear testimony is given. This is the message we have heard from him and proclaimed to you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. This barely scratches the surface of both the Old and New Testament references concerning God manifesting himself as light.
The Bible is replete with references to light, its power and function, but these references are not limited to just the Bible. The Quran states that God is the light of the heavens and earth. The mystical Jewish text, known as the Kabbalah, tells us that the light created by God in the act of creation was flared from one end of the universe to the other and was hidden away. In the sacred text of the Hindus, we read, Of 1,000 suns in the sky, if it suddenly should burst forth the light, it would be like unto the light of the Exalted One. Could it be that science, after all these years, is about to write a preamble to the book of Genesis? But even if, as George Meek insists, we can now say with certainty that there is a life beyond this one, where does that take us in our search? If science is at last willing to help light the way, can we find additional evidence for a place called heaven? Could it be that we are closer to our lost loved ones than we realize? Has scientific evidence already been uncovered that points towards that other world? In a universe teeming with all kinds of interstellar activity, it seems odd that critics and skeptics still maintain there is nothing out there except empty space. But then critics and skeptics have been known to be wrong. Sir William Preece, chief engineer of Britain's post office, is remembered primarily for stating that Edison's electric lamp was a completely idiotic idea. And he wasn't alone. Several professors, including Henry Morton, who, just as Edison was about to demonstrate the electric light globe, stated, on behalf of science, Edison's experiments are a fraud on the public. The Scientific American, the New York Times, the New York Herald, and academics from the U.S. Army all heaped derision on the Wright brothers, claiming it was scientifically impossible for machines to fly. And even in a more sophisticated world, many skeptics still didn't get it. Too many of them to even count stated that it was ridiculous to suggest that television waves could produce a picture. Historically, someone inevitably comes along to puncture the balloon of scholarly consensus. Given that reality, could it be that we've been looking for heaven in the wrong place? Is it possible that heaven can be found in a physics class? Which brings us to a point in our investigation few people ever get to, simply because the language of physics is often difficult to understand. But according to Dr. Melvin Morse, there are physicists who are attempting to bring the discussion down to a more understandable level.
In England today, a group of scientists, mathematicians, and university professors are working with subatomic particles in mathematical calculations, which they believe could confirm that so-called deceased entities, although composed of different atomic components, exist in and share the same space with this material world.
In simplest terms, these scientists are attempting to prove that based on principles of physics, when a person dies, the indestructible spirit changes at the atomic level and takes its place among us, but on a different plane. Quantum physicist Fred Alan Wolf takes that idea even further.
As fantastic as it sounds, the new physics called quantum mechanics indicates that there are parallel universes alongside our own universe. In each of these universes, living people also exist, including ourselves in alternate lives. Not only that, but people who are yet to live are alive in these universes, and people who we see have died are also living in these universes. In other words, parallel universe theory opens up the door for possibly a new model of heaven itself.
But if quantum physics can confirm parallel universes, can it also establish the existence of the individual soul?
I believe there is proof that the soul exists. I think quantum physics itself indicates the existence of another realm, a realm that we might say is the realm of the soul. And it indicates that consciousness itself is something outside of just the mere body. You might think of the soul or picture it from the point of view of quantum physics as a great ocean of vibration. It's vast, it's infinite, it's beyond anything we can compare. And you might think of the body as bubbles in this great ocean that pop up in form and structure. And they're effervescent. They appear for a certain period of time, and then they pop and they're gone. And the spirit or the soul then returns back into this great ocean. And just like the bubble eventually pops at the moment of death, so will our spirit return to this great ocean. This great ocean is the heavenly realm, and we're all in it. We're never really outside of it. We've been in it since we were born. In fact, in a certain sense, we never really were born or never really will die. We're just always part of the realm. From the point of view of quantum physics, we should not fear death. Death is simply a change of cosmic address.
If the physics could be proven then, it would mean that heaven is not in some far-off place, but literally just a step across the threshold into another realm. But the Bible describes heaven as a place of incomprehensible splendor. Can the parallel universe theory be consistent with the biblical description of heaven? While scientists seek to prove their theory, the anecdotal evidence for literal heaven continues to mount. Dr. Melvin Morse has taken his research to those least likely to be subject to cultural imagining, the children.
One of my earliest encounters with this phenomena was when I met a little girl named Katie. I was looking down at her lifeless body, wondering if there was any way that she could be saved. The CAT scan showed massive swelling of the brain, no gag reflex, and an artificial lung machine was breathing for her. Then the family came in the room and asked if they could pray for her. I thought that they didn't understand that she was certain to die. They held hands around her bed and they began to pray. 3 days later, Katie made a full recovery. So not long after her remarkable recovery, she came to see me for a follow-up examination. She clearly remembered me resuscitating her. In fact, I was amazed at what she could remember.
Katie stunned the doctor by identifying not only him, but a physician that had been working with him as well. She even knew which of them came into the room first.
I remember very clearly that throughout her resuscitation, her eyes were closed. In fact, she was profoundly comatose the entire time that we were working on her. And I thought to myself, what is going on here?
His curiosity fully piqued, Dr. Morse asked her what she remembered about being in the swimming pool. Her answer gave him another shock. Her innocent response was, "You mean when I met Jesus and Heavenly Father?"
She didn't say anything more at the time. Maybe it was the shocked look on my face, maybe she was embarrassed, but I brought her back for a follow-up interview. And at that time, she told me more of the details when she was taken up to heaven. She said that Jesus told her that it was time for her to go home. And she said, no, I want to stay here in heaven, and I'm having fun. And he then asked her, but don't you want to see your mother? And at that point, she returned to what we call consciousness.
Did Katie actually get a little glimpse of heaven? Few would argue that children like Katie have the capacity to make up such unique and detailed stories. Does Katie's experience and the similar experiences of others like her bring us any closer to the truth in our search for heaven? Based on the testimony of those who say they have been there and come back, both heaven and hell are very real places. In the meantime, various sciences are testing the concept of life after death and the location of heaven against the theorems of quantum physics. While the most comprehensive and far-reaching of all modern studies states unequivocally that it can now be stated with certainty that life continues, the question remains. Continues where? So far, materialists and skeptics alike have been unable to provide a credible explanation for any of the recorded phenomena. And as science learns more about the universe and our place in it, the new evidence appears to be bringing us even closer to our elusive goal. Should this evidence be ignored? Can it be ignored? How we answer that question will have eternal consequences for all of us.
Thank you.